The last time I applied financial astrology to a major asset, it moved 64%. So now we're looking at Bitcoin, and the timing couldn't be louder. I've been wanting to look at crypto, and after Bitcoin's six-figure stint over the holidays and recent crash, it's time for me to decode. Investor behavior dictates market sentiment, shifting between greed and despair, and often occurs in what are called psychological cycles. Astrology has long tracked collective psychological shifts. I'm interested in where those two systems overlap. There are 3 windows in 2026 that should be on your radar. Now, at a basic level, crypto is Uranian and Aquarian in energy, which is associated with technology and has an unpredictable nature. We also want to take a look at Neptune and Pisces for its non-physical form. Where do you think they got the name Ethereum? Mining crypto is mysterious, and noise becomes profit. How do you get your hands on it, and who can you trust? For bullish patterns, we'll want to take a look at Jupiter for its Midas touch and expansive tendencies. Look at Saturn for bearish patterns, which will show periods of regulation and maturation. Uranus enters Gemini on April 25, 2026, after a brief return to Taurus. While we saw scary collapses and crazy profit with Uranus and Taurus, Uranus in Gemini is more about hype. We will find in the coming years that the finance space will become more saturated. Uranus entered Taurus on May 18, 2018. Bitcoin crashed upon the COVID shutdown, which is also when Saturn was conjunct Pluto in Capricorn. Then massive momentum happened during quarantine with a boom in e-commerce. The Saturn-Pluto conjunction has historically marked generational economic restructuring phases, 1982 being one example. These cycles are rare and not expected to repeat for decades. Growth was slow, yet astronomically profitable. Nobody expected Bitcoin, which started at next to nothing in 2009, to reach 6 figures by 2025. Jupiter enters Leo on July 30th, 2026 and will oppose Pluto. The last Jupiter in Virgo, Libra, Pluto, and Capricorn opposition occurred on August 26, 2016 with periodic contacts until March 30th, 2017. And this time Bitcoin's value exploded by 178% from $577.75 to $1,026.43. Let's talk about Saturn. This is the most important part of this video, so pay attention. Every time Saturn enters a new sign, it labels an identity shift for cryptocurrency. During COVID, we saw Bitcoin as the one to replace them all, once the first major ETF applications gained institutional traction. Post-COVID, we needed to integrate it into the existing market so it would survive. Saturn entered Pisces on March 7th, 2023, and went retrograde back into Aquarius on September 1st, 2023. Prices were fairly stable, sitting around 26 to 27K. Whenever Saturn is in retrograde, institutions panic. Frameworks are rewritten. So what happened in October was a successful reorganization. A slew of investment firms like BlackRock, Fidelity, and Invesco filed exchange-traded funds or ETF applications, which took longer than usual for approval. An ETF lets institutions package Bitcoin exposure for clients. Once the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, or SEC, announced they needed more data in October 2023, anticipation of the impending approval increased by volume. Later in November 2024, we saw another time-tested spike pattern, the tail end of a Saturn retrograde cycle. Bitcoin had been sitting between 53 to 72K from March up until this time. The coinciding event that led up to this next jump was Donald Trump's election, who had recently vocalized crypto's future in the economy. Saturn stationed direct days later on November 15, 2024. In its most recent retrograde catapult, Bitcoin hit its all-time high on October 6, 2025, before Saturn stationed direct in Pisces on November 27, 2025. There's a very clear pattern. Late cycle Saturn retrogrades have continuously coincided with volatility compression followed by expansion. So how does Saturn in Aries define Bitcoin? A volatile market requires discipline and patience. You'll want to sell and give up, but reward comes over time. Remember, Bitcoin is not an independent, unregulated currency anymore. Cryptocurrency in general has gained widespread government recognition, like growing political interest in digital asset reserves and investment firm interest. The probability of a total systemic collapse decreases significantly once institutional infrastructure embeds an asset class. Should we be concerned with Neptune in Aries? Because that's happening now. Neptune dissolves structure. In Aries, it dissolves certainty. Money stops feeling tangible. Ownership becomes psychological. Now, a note on eclipse patterns. Normally, lunar cycles are fast-moving and too subtle to make measurable impact, but both lunar and solar eclipses have been known to briefly yet noticeably mark the economic climate. First, there's the partial solar eclipse in Aquarius on February 18, 2018. Bitcoin dropped after hitting a record high. The eclipse in Aquarius signifies a battle between tech and ego. Investors were getting cocky that previous December, but the sun was beginning to test endurance. Next is the lunar eclipse in Taurus on October 28th, 2023. From around this point, it began making its dramatic shift into the bullish Bitcoin market we have been familiar with up until recently, marking an astounding 140% increase within almost 5 months by March 14th, 2024. Finally, there's the solar eclipse in Aquarius, February 17th, 2026. Last time there was a solar eclipse in Aquarius in 2018, prices dropped. Since it's already just above the 52-week low right now, underlying market structure suggests a likely uptick. I want you to watch out for these 3 time periods. February 17th, the solar eclipse in Aquarius. This is a reset. Then pressure builds from June 17th to August 13th, while Jupiter periodically makes contact with Pluto. And then late November to early December, as Saturn in Aries wraps up its retrograde movement. We're looking at a pivot, another possible spike, just as we've seen in previous endings to Saturn retrograde cycles. Bitcoin isn't chaos, it's a cycle. The planets don't move markets, people do, but people move in patterns. 2026 has 3 of them. Watch closely. If this framework helps you see markets differently, subscribe. I'll be tracking these windows in real time.